So two massive losses for the Trump regime in federal court regarding SNAP benefits. A Rhode Island judge has ordered that the Trump regime immediately tap into its contingency or emergency funds to make sure that 42 million Americans don't starve this weekend. That was a decision issued by Judge John McConnell. The group Democracy Forward filed the one in Rhode Island. Then separately, there was a case brought by AGs in the United District Court for the District of Massachusetts, where there a federal judge, Judge Talwani, basically found the Trump regime not tapping into the emergency or contingency funds for SNAP was unlawful, but the remedy has not yet been officially issued by the judge in the Massachusetts case because the judge wants an answer by Monday, but people are going to starve this weekend. So the Rhode Island order is a nationwide order, though, and that's really big. And it's big because for a lot of reasons. One, because we don't want people to starve to death. And so this was a heroic lawsuit filed by the group Democracy Forward. But also the Trump regime has been exposed as utter liars, right? You had MAGA Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance and Trump and all of them. They were saying this lawsuit is frivolous, that there's no basis. And now we have federal judges, multiple, saying, no, the actual correct legal opinion is that this emergency fund should absolutely be used. So here's what MAGA Mike said. And now that we know what the federal judges have ordered, what MAGA Mike said should just show you that whenever this guy opens up his mouth, he freaking lies about everything. Here, play this clip.
I'll just add to that. The Democrats are lying about that, and I think they know that. Some of the ones who are out saying it are actually attorneys. They can read the black letter law themselves. They've even filed a lawsuit, you saw, to try to do it. Why? Because they wanted a talking point. They know that's a frivolous piece of litigation. They know they're going to lose, but they also know it'll take many weeks or months to have that ultimately determined by a court because of the way the justice system works. So they're using it as a talking point to try to claim.
Okay, and then you had Brooke Rollins, the agriculture secretary. Here's what she said.
So there is a contingency fund at USDA, but that contingency fund, by the way, doesn't even cover, I think, half of the $9.2 billion that would be required for November SNAP, but it is only allowed to flow if the underlying program is funded. It's called a contingency fund, and by law, contingency fund can only flow when the underlying fund is flowing. So, for example,
well, it's clear that they're liars. Let's bring in Skye Perryman, president and CEO of Democracy Forward, whose group represented all of the municipalities and organizations that brought that lawsuit in Rhode Island. So vindicated. I mean, more importantly, the people who could go starving are going to be fed. But the Trump regime has been saying that there's no basis in law for them to give these funds to these people who the funds are intended to go to, that the legislation clearly says it should go to. And now, Skye, you have the federal judges telling them that this is what the contingency fund is for. Great victory and great to have you here. And thank you for bringing that lawsuit.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a tremendous effort by our team, by our co-counsel, the Lawyers Committee of Rhode Island, and the Maison Leaders, Maison Justice Center, and Democracy Forward. And then, of course, our brave clients, who I don't want to get lost here. I mean, the Rhode Island Council of Churches, the National Council of Nonprofits, SEIU. I mean, these are clients that are representing so many communities. We have small grocers, people across the country, small businesses that stepped forward in order to secure this order. And I think the Trump administration needs to let the judges interpret the law. That's one of my takeaways from the clips you played.
I want to show you here as well, because you had J.D. Vance saying it also. And again, they just look at the camera and they've figured out all the unlawful ways to move money around to do all of the criminal stuff that they were doing. But when the law clearly said contingency emergency fund for this purpose, they're like, nothing we can do here. You see, it's very complicated. Here is J.D. Vance saying it. Let's play it.
Mr. Vice President, on the issue of the shutdown, there is the concern about 42 million people losing their SNAP benefits. Of course. Over this weekend. The administration's moved a lot of money around to pay troops, to pay federal law enforcement, and is telling Congress you can't move money around to pay at least some of those benefits. Why not? And would there be some push perhaps in the next 48 hours to try to do that so Americans don't go hungry?
Well, here's the problem. if you go back to previous government shutdowns, what has happened is that sometimes the president has tried to make the shutdown as painful as possible on the American people. I give the president of the United States great credit and the entire team for trying to make this as painless as possible. The Democrats are acting irresponsibly. He doesn't want the American people to suffer because of it. But look, right now, this government, this administration, we're like guys running around, with a leak in a damn wall, trying to plug it with bubble gum. And we plug one spot with bubble gum, and we plug another spot with bubble gum, and we plug another spot with bubble gum. Why don't the Democrats just stop this entire charade and reopen the government so that we don't have to try to make this thing work on a shoestring budget, which is what we're trying to do. The unfortunate reality, and we're starting to see this with our aviation industry, we're going to find out the hard way with SNAP benefits. The American people are already suffering, and the suffering is going to get a lot worse.
The suffering is going to get a lot worse. I guess that's their campaign slogan. It went from Make America Great Again to the suffering is going to get worse. And it seems like they're not the people running around to try to close up the little holes or whatever he tried to say. They're the people with the torches creating the problem.
I mean, they control they control the White House, they control the legislative branch, and they're just trying to point around. I mean, it's like this is what's happening on their watch. But the good news is that people in communities have stepped forward. The federal judges have interpreted the law, and people are going to be able to breathe a sigh of relief, not because of the White House or because of Republicans in Congress, but because of the bravery of our clients and the tenacity of our lawyers.
Look, they're doing a lot of things as well. The contrast, right, is they're trying to starve people, quite literally, starve people to death. I don't know how else to describe it. Donald Trump's up there posting photos of the new marble in the Lincoln bedroom. He showed a photo of what the toilet bowl looks, the kind of the golden area by the toilet bowl. And when you look out the window, you see the East Wing of the, where the East Wing used to be, that was demolished, which I think was demolished unlawfully and based on fraudulent representations. And I also think this whole idea of private companies buying space in some ballroom, there's no disclosure. What's going on? I don't believe that federal money's not being used, because who's paid for it already? Who's paid for the trees getting knocked down? And I've been saying that there should be something there. And I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know that Democracy Forward is involved in lots of cases. So I'm trying to find anybody who's
well, look,
something.
First of all, what this president has done to the East Wing is a metaphor, right, for what this administration is doing to the country. And I think that's why it's resonating with so many Americans, regardless of what people's, views on policy issues are. This just shows how extreme this administration is. We have initiated an investigation today of 6 different federal agencies across the federal government seeking internal communications, seeking documents and information. If the government responds to our investigative demands the way it has in many cases, we will probably be in court in the next few days to compel their response. And I'd be happy to come back and chat with you about what we find there. But as with everything that this administration has done that is harmful and unlawful and offensive to the American people, you are going to see us in court, and we've initiated that litigation starting today. Folks can follow information about that at democracyforward.org.
Right. I mean, it was going to be 200 million, then 250,
right,
then 300.
Exactly.
Now they're talking about a triumphal arch that they want to build next. And it's like the American people are suffering. And by the way, who is really paying for all of these things? And we know with the East Wing, there was a bunker underneath as well, which was the kind of presidential operations center. Are the taxpayers now paying for that? What's going on there? And so there's a lot that I think needs to be investigated. And I think until we get these disclosures, and I'm not sure if this will be in a future case or not, I just think that the construction needs to stop until we know who's funding this thing, are foreign countries. So do you think that there could potentially be injunctive relief?
I'll just say, I mean, we're reviewing all legal options, and we, think have a good track record that if there's a way to get into court to protect the American people and and both the simple, but also to protect them from the corruption that we know that is happening with the demolition of the East Wing with these plans. By the way, they're all doing this while not spending and spending what they should be releasing for SNAP, which we've been able to take care of today. But if there is a way, we will find it. And so folks can follow along at democracyforward.org.
And so finally, you and I are recording this like quite literally right after the Rhode Island judge made the ruling. So that's when we're recording this. So now if the Trump, this is the reality is that if the Trump regime cared about people, they should be celebrating the ruling.
They should be
right?
celebrating it, and they shouldn't appeal it, and they should celebrate it because the judges have clarified that their hands, in fact, are not tied, and that they do have the ability and the legal obligation to release these funds. So now that we'll have to see if their talk, how their talk lives up, and we will have some more information. The judges are requiring reports as early as Monday. I also want to highlight, in addition to the case at Democracy Forward, you have a number of state AGs that have brought a lawsuit that has had a good preliminary result today, and there's some other lawsuits too. So I think we're going to let the people in the courts do the work now, since the White House and Republicans in Congress, have really been derelict in their duties.
Now, Skye, where can people support your work at Democracy Forward? Because the work you're doing is so important, and I want people to learn more about it.
Yeah, we'd love for you to follow Democracy Forward on all channels. And, you can see our work there, and then go to democracyforward.org. If you sign up for our newsletter, we do not spam you. We promise that. But there is a donate button on the website. And of course, you can follow our work through the newsletter, which many people tell us it gives them hope. And it really shows that this pushback is happening, that we are making progress, and that we're going to do everything we can to try to protect people in this time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you as always. Democracy Forward, doing the work, rolling up their sleeves. Check out the website, and thanks for fighting for the people.
Thanks.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.